Hi, my name is Caleb. Welcome to Random Renovations. Today we're going to be insulating, running some power through the walls, and covering them with some OSB.
As you can see, we are drilling through the walls to prepare for running the wire. You can see the green laser line we have set up. That's so that all of our holes are level, one to the other, and that just helps create a very neat looking install, as well as makes it so that we know exactly where that wire is running through the wall, so we don't take a risk of putting a nail through it or anything like that. But the big reason is for a very clean looking install. As you can see, we are pulling the wire through all the holes we just drilled, and we're going to pull it all the way around, and then we're going to come back and pull additional out at each future outlet location. That way we don't have any breaks in the line. It's just one continuous line, and we'll cut it for each outlet later. It just helps, again, make the install look a little bit nicer. So we got the wire run through the wall, and a very important step we're doing now is to staple the loops, and that just secures the wire right before it comes out of the wall. I believe that is required by code, and it also just makes sure that they come out at the exact right height so that the outlets will be even across after they are installed. So we were having some camera difficulties, and so you did not get to see us cutting this insulation, but an easy trick for cutting fiberglass insulation is to lay a 2x4 down on the floor, put another one on top and squish it as thin as possible. Then you can just take a knife and slice right through it, and it cuts a very clean edge. It's much better than fighting with the insulation and having it tear, which is a very big issue with fiberglass. Also, having a sharp blade is very important, so replacing that blade as you need to keep those cuts smooth and easy will make a big difference. Utility knife blades are not that expensive, and it's worth replacing them as they get dull. It definitely makes your life a lot easier. And as you can see here, we're just popping them in the wall. I did notice I made a mistake and never folded the flaps over and stapled them. I don't think it's going to be a big deal in this situation, but you are supposed to do that as well, and I did miss that step. Now that we've finished up installing the fiberglass in the stud bays, we are putting plastic on the walls. A couple reasons for this. The primary reason I did this was because there's concrete at the bottom of the wall, concrete blocks, and I did not want to take any chance of moisture transfer between that and the OSB. But it's also good for an air barrier. It'll keep wind from passing through, and that's going to make a big difference in the shed later on. I did make another mistake here. I forgot to put blocking in the corner to attach the OSB to, and so you see that I'm having to climb under the plastic to install that blocking. Definitely something to remember before we start putting plastic up, but we were able to correct it just fine. Now that we have all the blocking done, we started going through and stapling all the plastic in place. That just makes it, again, neat and tidy and holds it where it needs to be. So we're putting staples top and bottom as well as down each stud just to make sure it's held in place, and that'll also help us to locate the studs easily when we're installing the OSB later. Definitely helps at that stage. I'm not showing you everything because it just gets repetitive, so we do cut this section short, but I promise you we did staple the entire section. Now we're moving on to installing the OSB, and you can see the plastic's all stapled on, and we're installing the first piece on the back wall. I've already cut a hole in it for that wire, and we're going to lift it up, get it over the wire, and get it screwed in. One trick to help you install a piece like this when you're installing it up at the top is to start a screw before you actually hang the sheet. That way when you put it up there, you just have to screw that screw in, and you do not have to try to start one while also trying to hold it up. It really helps to get your first sheet on. Now we're bringing in the second piece that goes underneath the first one, and we just hold it tight up against the first one and screw it in just like the first. You'll notice on this next section we start out with a very small piece. The reason for that is the spacing of the studs was not very conducive to starting with a full sheet. I needed to cover more than 8 feet of the wall for the workbench we were installing. And so we started with a small piece to get us centered on the first stud. It's very important that you get your seams to split across a stud, and that keeps your sheets fully supported. So I'm bringing in this next piece, and this one has 2 wires that stick through the sheet. You'll see in a moment that the way we managed to make that work was that we pre-attached some screws to the top of the sheet, and then we were able to hang the sheet off of a couple screws at the top and get behind it to shove the wires through the hole. This made it so that myself, without any help, was able to hold the sheet up and then get the wires pushed through the holes in the OSB. Usually having a second person would be the preferred way to do it, but that is a trick you can use if you have to do it by yourself. We did get the bottom sheet installed very similarly to the other bottom sheets, where we just push it up against the top sheet, and that one went well. We're now just filling in the sheets, all of them with the correct number of fasteners. I believe we did about 4 screws vertically across the 4 foot of width on each stud. Now you may wonder, why do we do OSB? Well, it's because for its thickness, it's very tough. It's not going to get damaged very easily, and it's very easy to fasten things like battery chargers or tool racks to it because it's all wood. One problem with OSB, though, just like many other materials, is it will wick water, and so you'll notice we put a 1-inch gap between the floor and the sheets all the way around. And so that will allow it to withstand some water on the floor, because it doesn't ever really get very high, but occasionally we'll get some water in there, as well as it just keeps it from pulling any moisture out of the concrete, which yes, it can do. And if you haven't yet seen the video that we put out a while ago on building the actual workbench, go back and watch that. I apologize for the audio ahead of time, but we are working on improving that. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch that, and we'll see you next time.